Let's start with the managing the documents, because I think we can work
Okay.
backwards from there and it'll be a bit clearer.
All right. So I'm just going to skip over to documentation management.
Yep. And I think the first action we need is that our users, which is our clients, are going to need a way to see and edit the content of a document.
Okay. So let's make an action group and call it editing documents.
Yep, perfect.
So what do they need to be able to do?
So the first thing they need to be able to do is they need to be able to see and edit the content of a document.
Okay. So a user can see and edit content of the document. What else?
And the next action would be that they need a way to see and edit the name of the document. And then the users are going to need a way to save the changes that they make to a document.
Yep.
And like I said earlier, we want to enable multiple languages. So they're also going to need a way to navigate between the languages that are available for each document. As part of that, if there's no content for a specific language, the user will see a warning that the tutorial is going to default to English if someone asks this question or tries to view this document.
Okay, so if there's no content for a selected language,
The user will see a warning message that it will default to the English version when shown to a user. And then the one last thing we need to consider before we can be done with this editing document feature is when a document is edited, that's going to mean that all of the questions that we have cached may need to be regenerated. So to make that super easy for one of our customers, I think we should have a button that says that they can mark all the questions that are linked to a document as needing to be regenerated on the next time a user asks the question. So on the next time it's prompted.
Okay, so user can mark. How would you write
I'd say
that out?
user can mark all questions linked to a document as needing to be regenerated when prompted.
Anything else?
Yeah, so in order to find these documents and manage them, we're going to need some sort of like sidebar, like a content list. So that'll have,
Okay.
I'm imagining these documents will be stored in folders so you can organize it by like the core features of your software. But then also we want to do a folder and document system because it's more flexible than tying it to screens or any of the things that we already use in Dev in a Box to organize software. We want it to be flexible. So
Yeah.
I think the first action there is the user is going to be able to see a list of all the folders and documents that are within their software that they're providing documentation for. And I think those folders are going to be expandable and collapsible, so we can show and hide the documents within, so it's a bit easier to navigate. Yep, and then you just have the simple action of imagining a user can just click on a document on the sidebar, and that's what will open up the content. And then the user's going to need to be able to add a folder and add a document, so two different actions.
Yeah, and they also need to be able to delete each, don't they?
Yes. And if they're deleting a document, they should probably get a "Are you sure?" message, like just before we delete it because it's linked to all the documents and all that sort of stuff. So some sort of confirmation.
You probably want that on the folder as well because by deleting the folder, you'd be deleting the documents within, right?
Yeah, and I think we should make that clear as well in the action, is that this is going to delete all your documents within the folder.
Cool. Let me just copy this up.
Now, I think beyond the MVP, we might add stuff like the ability to move documents in and out of folders by dragging them. But I think for the MVP, this is a good enough set of actions for us to give it to our clients and have them test out this functionality, see if it works well for them.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, we're also going to need a way for the user to navigate to the help questions list from within the documentation manager.
Okay, I'm going to put that into a new actions list that's just for navigation because I imagine we'll probably be adding more general navigation later on.
Yeah. And we're also going to need a way, and I think this should be another action group, of managing languages. So we talked about essentially these documents can be in any language that the customer wants to define it. And I think a future update we'd manage translations for them, but for now it'll all just be manual. So they need a way to see a list of the languages that they're currently supporting in their documentation.
Yep.
And then they need a way to add a language. And I think it would be good to have this be a free input field rather than a drop down. But yeah, user can add a language, and that will apply the language to all documents, so that you will now be able to add the translation in the document file.
Yep.
And then they'll need to remove a language.
Yeah. User can remove.
And I think the way this will work is instead of like deleting the content, it'll just stop it from being visible any longer for users and for the editor. But if they add the language back later, it'll become visible again.
All right, I'll just put in won't delete content in language.
But hide.
Will only hide.
I think that's worth doing because the storage is going to be minimal for this stuff, and it's going to be way more frustrating if they delete and then they need to bring it back later.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything else on this?
I think that's features done. So we've got way to manage languages, we've got the navigation of the help bar, and then we've got the simply the way to edit the content. That's perfect.
Shall we go through and add our functions?
Yeah, let's go through and add our functions.
Okay, let's start here at managing language first. So user can see a list of languages in the documentation. We really just need the language names, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else for this one?
No, that's perfect. We just need the language names.
All right. User can add a language. So we want a language input field.
Yep. And I like the way that the AI suggestion has said apply language button. I think that's probably the language that we'd be looking for around that.
Cool. And then user can remove a language. Just a remove language button.
Yeah. And maybe we also put a confirmation message in there as well. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay. I would also want it so that we actually give them a new styling in the list. So we still display it in the list, but we show it as something that's been removed. So they know that there's content somewhere for it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. All right, let's go from the top now. So user can see a list of all folders and documents that are within their software. So we're going to need a folder name and then just documentation name.
Yeah.
A document name. User can expand and collapse. So we're going to need a let's say drop down toggle. And then we're also going to need the drop down content so we can know that we can use that expanding functionality. And then we'll also, I don't think we actually need anything else here. We just need a toggle and content to open and close it. And then user can open a document to view and edit its content. This is where I would put in a text link for that documentation, for that document, sorry.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I would also argue that it would also be really valuable to have a current document like styling, so we know which document we're currently looking at within that content list.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. No, that's awesome.
Cool. And then user can add a folder. I just say a new folder button, new folder name input.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how we want to do it, because we could do it that way, or we could do it so it adds it and it calls it new folder, right? And then they can click on it and edit the name of the folder. I don't know, what's your perspective as a UI designer?
Either way, we will need a input field functionality in there. So that's just about how you design the user flow later on as a UX designer. But the functionality still, there still needs to be a place where we input that name.
Okay, let's keep it
the
that
functions stay the same. Yeah. And then adding a document will do the same. Let's write this one in. So add document button and a document name input field. And then user can delete a folder. just need a delete folder button, and we'll do a confirm delete and a cancel delete button for that confirmation. Cool. And then user can delete a document, do exactly the same thing. Delete document button, cancel dialog, confirm dialog.
Cool.
So editing the document. User can see and edit the content of the document. We just want to do it in markdown format, don't we?
Yeah.
So document text in markdown. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
And then to edit the name, we just need document name input.
Yep.
And then to save the changes, we just need a save button. And I'll also add in a cancel button here. Then to navigate between the languages, see, this is going to be a big question for the UI UX designer as to how we organize these languages. But I think for now, I'm just going to do language selection button.
Yep. I think that makes sense.
Because there's 110 different ways you could slice and dice this, depending on what works best. And then if there's no content for the selected language, user can see a warning message that will default to English version when shown to their user. So we're just going to put in a warning message, I would say.
Yep, perfect.
And then user can mark all questions linked to a document as needing to be regenerated when prompted. So we will want a mark all questions button. And I also want to put in a timestamp.
No, that's a really good idea because it means that we can, it'll be easy for them to tell when they last did it. And also
so a timestamp.
Because I imagine we'll be doing some of this for them.
Yeah, so a timestamp for when their last marked is generated for regeneration.
Yeah.
Cool. And then navigation, we've done all of these manage. Navigation, I'm just going to put
just a text link.
Simple. Cool. Is that everything for this feature?
Yeah, that's everything. I think maybe we move on to help questions list and really just lay out what the admin portal is going to look like.